Entry 5. Some habits hollow the heart by degrees. 10 years of the same calculus, 20 years of the same result, and the reward becomes a paper coin. I do this because I have always been able to. That is a poor reason after a lifetime. After tonight's work, the air in my lungs tasted like the inside of a closed book, dry and disregarded. Even the meticulousness of the act, which used to sing like a bell, now rang only faintly. I found myself counting the minutes until that feeling drained away. That is the point where pride might have been dangerous had I possessed it. Instead, I catalogued the degradation of sensation. It was, like everything else, data. When boredom is chronic, it mutates into bravado or into stupidity. I do not do bravado. Theater is amateurish. But boredom needs an outlet, and curiosity is the only respectable outlet I can admit to in my own head. Curiosity is scientific. Curiosity legitimizes deviation. That is how I told myself the idea formed, a deviation for the sake of information. What frightens me, if anything can be said to frighten me, is that the absence of sensation resembles the absence of purpose. Purpose follows focus. When focus is habitual, purpose atrophies. I have no interest in novelty for novelty's sake. I do, however, want to learn how far the city will look when you hand it the possibility of looking. In other words, if I puncture the silence on purpose, who will notice the whole? The body tonight offered no resistance, a simple procedure, efficient, almost bored in its obedience. The silence that followed did not bloom, it merely lingered. I wiped my hands on the curb and waited for some echo, fear, disgust, triumph. But the night stayed flat, like static stretched too thin. I realized then that I could have been anyone standing there. My own absence had become interchangeable. The city around me was precise in its indifference. Windows reflected only their own light, no witnesses, not even silhouettes pretending concern. I could hear a refrigerator hum through an open basement vent, a sound more alive than the body cooling near my feet. Somewhere a train passed, a soft mechanical sigh moving east. In those sounds, I felt the city's exhaustion mirror my own. We were both still running, but only out of habit. There was a time when I thought repetition proved mastery. Now it feels like an instrument out of tune, still accurate, but the music has stopped meaning anything. My hands continue their perfect rehearsals, yet the rest of me waits for instruction that never arrives. It occurs to me that perfection itself might be the most dangerous addiction. Once achieved, nothing remains to pursue but deterioration. I once read that when deprived of stimulus, the brain begins to generate its own noise. Perhaps that is all conscience ever was, a form of tinnitus in the moral ear. Lately I have begun to hear a low frequency under the silence, not a voice, not words, just a hum that feels like memory pretending to be music. It follows me through corridors and over bridges. I wonder if the silence has grown tired of me, or if it is warning me that even stillness requires evolution to survive. At home, I sat in the dark and catalogued the evening. I record now in units of absence. Absence of fear, total. Absence of excitement, near total. Absence of consequence, complete. I keep the notebook not as confession but calibration, each entry a barometer of depletion. Some nights reviewing the numbers, I feel as though I am auditing a stranger's life. The ritual of cleansing continues, though it has lost its sacrament. I wash my hands longer, waiting for heat to return, counting in fours, but the numbers arrive late, as if tired of being summoned. The hum beneath the skin has replaced pulse. Even the soap, once sharp as antiseptic, now smells neutral, diluted. I suppose that is what decay feels like when applied to meaning. Routine disguises rot for a long time. You tell yourself that habit equals discipline, that repetition prevents collapse. But repetition is just a more organized kind of decay. The edges of thought begin to blur. Decisions feel pre-decided. I wonder how many times I have killed the same person in different bodies, how many patterns have looped without me noticing. The city recycles its archetypes, and I oblige it. The only novelty left is in observation. Tonight, I returned to the scene 2 hours later, not to admire, but to verify the silence. I stood where I had been, hands in pockets, blending with the industrial geometry of pipes and drains. The air already smelled ordinary again. A janitor's cart clattered down the far end of the street. His humming carried faintly, a poor imitation of mine. The police had not arrived. I realized with a strange calm that they might not come at all. The city had metabolized the act too quickly, digested the anomaly before it could even register as error. It should have pleased me. Instead, it produced something I have not felt in years: irritation. Precision deserves audience. If no one sees, then perfection ceases to exist except in the mind of its author, and my mind has grown unreliable. I no longer trust my measurements. When I reached home, I opened the curtains and stared at the skyline. The towers blinked in intervals of coded warning lights, each one rhythmically precise. To an airliner, those lights say caution. To the ground, they say order persists. To me, they whispered, no one is watching closely enough to know you are here. For a long time, I believed control was its own reward. Control, I see now, is only half a circuit. The other half is recognition, a feedback loop that tells the mechanism it is functioning. Without that, even precision becomes noise. The city hums because it needs to hear itself working. I kill for the same reason. Tonight, neither of us made a sound worth remembering. I thought perhaps fatigue was the culprit, but fatigue implies effort. There was none. The body, the cleanup, the walk, all muscle memory performed by an automaton that has forgotten its inventor. It's possible the silence has learned to operate without me. That should terrify me more than it does. I considered stopping, not out of remorse but curiosity. What would happen if I withheld my contribution from the system? Would the silence collapse or simply absorb another interval of nothing? Could absence itself be addicted to me? I wonder if I am no longer the hand, but the echo. Tomorrow I will test the theory. Not through abstinence, through disruption, a deliberate imperfection, a controlled contamination. Perhaps I will leave a trace, a fingerprint, a misplaced fiber, something the system cannot immediately smooth away, a deviation, a flaw designed to be found, not confession, invitation. If the city is capable of looking, I will give it something worth seeing. If it cannot, I will finally know the measure of its blindness. Either way, the silence will change pitch, and for the first time in decades, I may feel something again.